And we are live. Live. We are alive, except we're dead. Ding.
Well, we're not. We're not really. I mean, we're both.
We are. We are, because life exists within death, and death within existence. It's really funny because as you said that, your cameras for some reason switched and you were on one side and then you were on the other side and you were like, and this and this, and just a position. And I was like, how did you do that?
I didn't do that on purpose, but that's great.
I hope that shows up on the actual video.
Manually.
Random.
Hi, everybody. It's been a little bit. It's
Welcome
been like,
back.
what, 2 weeks now?
About 2 weeks. So we are back, mofos, and we're talking about shadow work. Shocker.
You couldn't even say mofos seriously.
I know. That's because it wasn't serious. Mo flows. Because we're flowing in the flux. We're Mo flows.
Oh my God. Flux flows.
We're Mo flows. So hi to everybody in the chat. Hello to Jen. Hello to Gargoyle. Hello to Moon Moon. That's an awesome name. Hello to Random. Hello to Wayward Wildflower. I nearly messed that up totally. Hello to Cheyenne. Hello to Dawn. Hello to... Oh, we got Molly Roberts. Hello to Molly Roberts. And did I say everybody?
1 second.
What's the matter? Oh, there are things. There are things happening. Everybody look away from Chris. Don't look. Don't look. I'll carry it. We'll be fine. So hi to everybody. This is all very, very distracting. This is not the way to start a live stream. So welcome back, guys. We're going to be talking about endings and resistance today. We're going to be talking about that element of shadow work. We decided to talk about this particular side of shadow work because this is something that I've been noticing in my own life and in the energies around us, and a lot lately. There have been a lot of kind of end cycles within life, and we're approaching, in this side of the world at least, Samhain, which is the Witch's New Year. And the Witch's New Year is very much about the death of one year and the rebirth into another, as well as working through the dark half of the year. The dark half of the year. So I thought, if Chris comes back, we will talk about end cycles and kind of like deaths. It's kind of like little mini deaths that occur within our everyday life. I will let Chris know about your face paint when she comes back, Claire. She is currently AWOL. Only who knows what. I have no idea what's going on. So I can't really do this until she gets back. So how is everybody? How's everyone doing? Have you missed us? Hey, Freaky Unicorn, that's an amazing name. She's coming back. We'll be all right. So welcome back. So Claire Crafty wants you to know that she has received her Hellcappy death paint.
Oh, good. 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 Did it get there all safe and everything? I always worry with the glass. I haven't had one break yet, but I'm still always paranoid.
She seemed happy with it, and she's smiling, so we're good.
Awesome.
And hey to Matthias and a witch called Autumn, which is also an amazing name. Your screen just did its weird flicky thing from one side to another. Again.
What is it doing?
I don't know unless it's possessed. So I've introduced the topic on what we're going to talk about today, about like death cycles and endings, and because there's been so many endings within the energies in general within our lives, and we're coming up to Samhain, and then talking about the resistance to endings, which is kind of resistance to change, but really the resistance to things coming to an end, and how we kind of resist those things. Oh, it made it to the UK. Awesome. Hi, Mowena.
Yeah.
I wish all my mail would make it to the UK. I have about 10 outstanding parcels.
Oh,
anyway.
Geez.
Yep. And I have orders waiting because everything's always late. Anyway, so welcome back, Chris.
Thanks.
Zen, Center, Zen, and do you want to start talking about some end cycles?
Talking about stuff and things.
Talking about stuff.
I guess I could talk about stuff and things.
Nothing. Thing.
Yeah. So endings and thanks, Dawn. Yeah.
It's so good, isn't it? Such a good shirt. I'll try and show
season.
you guys my necklace in a bit. Or maybe now.
It's the season. Yeah, you might as well do it now.
Come over here so I can see how. Oh no, it's totally too shiny. It's a tiny little. It's the tiny little ghost that came in the Spooky Box Club. So I put it on a chain with the Ouija board
with
Fallon shed.
Yeah, see, from there it looked like a skull that had been cracked in 2 pieces.
Oh, and one
cool,
was like Phantom of the
Opera style. And then I realized that it was the bed.
It's me.
Yeah.
Inside your mind. Anyway, ending cycles.
Excuse me.
Well, this is a mess of a topic.
It is. All right. So, endings and resistance. So, there's a lot of different forms. Joey and I were talking about the fact that, like, we've had stuff happening in our personal lives on a global scale. I mean, every aspect you could really think about. I mean, even looking at last month alone, it's still bleeding into this month in a lot of ways, of things ending and the resistance that we have to it of not wanting to let go, even though we know inside that it is the end.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's like that meme, you know, that meme or that image where it's like sometimes it's better to let go, and it's like a hand holding onto a rope, and it's like we're hanging on so tightly that we're cutting ourselves and we're making ourselves bleed because we feel like we have to hang on to things. And then what's actually better is the letting go, but it's scary. It's jumping into the unknown.
Yeah.
Now, I've already done a video, but it's not rendered yet, which is a little bit of a shame because I kind of addressed something which feeds into this really well, which is the idea of going outside of one's comfort zone. And the comfort zone element of things is what comes into this, into fear of change, into fear of things ending, because we become comfortable in the routine of life, in the places that we know what's happening, we know what it looks like, we know what the eventualities are likely to be, even if they shift a little bit. But generally speaking, we know where we're at, we know who we are, we know who we're interacting with, we know what's going on.
Yeah.
And ending cycles kind of are like, oh, you thought you were good. Throw.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're into a dark goddess path, then you know that the minute you start resisting change is the minute you get change dumped on your head in droves. Oh, you thought you were done. More change. That's a good point as well, Mirwena, which is something else that I have actually kind of touched on in the last blog post, which was, as a society, we're conditioned to hold on and do as much as possible before letting go, which is shit, really. Yes.
Yeah.
There is an element of, and I think I was talking to you about this, Cris, or I might be talking to someone else, or maybe both, because it all blurs into one craziness.
Or all the things, because we end up talking about the shit anyway.
Which is the fact about family members. And you're kind of conditioned to be like, your family are allowed to get away with anything, and you should always forgive them, and you should always just get on with it because it's your family. And as somebody who's been like abused by family members, every time I see this mentality, wherever it is, whether it's TV shows or whatever, in like, you know, global conditioning, I'm like, but no, that needs to die a death, because people do not get a all access free pass into your life for any reason. If they're hurting you, if they're abusing you, if they're causing you a lot of pain, and it's like on a repeated cycle of abuse style, no.
Get my thing so I can start making notes.
She's making notes. She's making notes. It's one of those days. It's an earth sign kind of day. We're making notes.
Oh yeah. So See, okay, so I was thinking about what you were just saying, and I'm like, you know, I'm down for like the family's always there vibe, but I'm also like, you know, that doesn't mean like there's this notion of unconditional love being that you have to like keep someone in your life for it also. No, because like for instance, you can love someone and do it from afar. First of all, like nobody realizes this. I feel like, well, some people do. Obviously, that's a very generalized term, but like you can love someone and wish them the best, but not have them in your life. That's a thing. I do that with most of my people. Because that doesn't give someone a free pass to abuse you, like she said. Like that doesn't excuse actions. And I think the notion of unconditional love being always there to be beat on is not what that means. Unconditional love, you know, to love someone else, you got to love yourself. So where's your unconditional love for you in that? You know? So there's a line, and there's more ways than one to do that unconditional love. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody's saying like go buy everybody a fucking cake.
But do send your cakes too. Anyway,
yeah, you can send the cakes.
You can send me a cake. That's fine. I could use the cake, you know. Anyway, I bring up family because I think family is perhaps the most difficult ending that we resist, perhaps more than any other relationship that requires an ending, because we can read, hey Charlie, oh it's Charlie,
hey it's Charlie.
And I think that so family can be the most difficult to apply this kind of, oh my god, there's cake in the chat. Someone sent me cake in the chat.
If there is one thing we've learned in this entire chat so far is that cake is good.
Cake is good. That's it. The end. Anyway.
We're out.
Yeah. Done. Wisdom departed. Yeah. Yes. Cake is good. One of those galaxy cakes. I wanted one of those for my birthday. I did not get one. So because it's family and we're kind of conditioned that we should always be there and no matter what happens, and it can be some of the most difficult end cycles to deal with. And I know from personal experience, and Brandon was sharing her experience up in the chat. It's kind of scrolled through a bit about having to expel her mother and so far. Yeah, I'm going to read that out random because that's exactly how I was about it. The little girl in me has wanted to have my mother there for me in so many ways, but the soul me knew I had to let her go. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. So the little girl me in my scenario really wanted my mother's approval. And you have never seen a kid work so hard for approval in your life as I did as a kid. I was top of the class for everything.
Virgo.
Yeah, but we were all Virgos though, but we were all quite different because all three of us were Virgos. The kids, that is. And it was a Taurus mother.
So.
Yeah. So I was top of the class all the time. I worked really, really hard. I was a good kid. I never got into very much trouble. I never did anything like untoward, if you like. I never got in any fights. I mean, I drank a little bit from sort of 17, 18, but not like some people do. But other than that, I didn't touch anything like, I didn't touch drugs, I didn't touch cigarettes, I didn't touch anything. So I was basically like picture perfect child. And my mother hated me, hated me. And it was layers upon layers of why. And to be honest, I'm not sure to this day I fully understand why. And I had to get to the point where I was like, it's really not something that I need to understand because it's not actually about me. And it's not really something that I did. Because whereas I can be an argumentative know-it-all, for sure, #Virgo, that's about the sum of my crimes as a teenager, being like a know-it-all and strong-willed maybe. And that's kind of it. Well, I'm trying to think if I did anything else, but I can't think of anything because, you know, in general, teachers loved me, and I was teacher's pet all the time, and
Which
most of
I
the
also
time.
just would like to point out the irony too. Like, okay, so a lot of kids within like gothic subculture, metalhead subculture, a lot of like, you know, that kind of area, are seen as like the ruffians, the troublemakers. But in my experience, most of the time, we just want to chill out in our room and listen to music. Or like go for a walk by ourselves and listen to music. Like we really don't.
Well, I wasn't full-on gothic as a teenager. My middle sister was. My middle sister had a beautiful gothic aesthetic. She even did, you know, with all the wool dreads at one point in her hair, she did all of that. And she did a lot of the Victorian long dresses, lace, goth stuff. So she did a lot of that. Me as a teenager, I was your typical jeans and a t-shirt. So I didn't even have that aesthetic to like rile my mother up. It's only later in life where I was like, I really, really loved all of that aesthetic, and I'm going to I just gotta take a little bit.
You do it anyway.
Yeah. I gotta be who I want to be now. now I'm not like living up to somebody else's standards. So now I embrace the gothic. He's not full on, obviously. I just
wanted to like make a note of that because like I remember people giving my mom this like side glance, you know, like, oh, good luck with that one, because I had like the violet hair and like I was like a little metalhead child, and the gothic hair and like the big chains and the wide leg jinkos with all the zippers, and like, you know, I'd drawn all over my Vans shoes, and like the big, you know, like baggy metal shirts that are all ripped up, and I don't dress too drastically different now that I say that. Anyway, I've upgraded to cardigans. But people give my mom the side glance like, oh, good luck. And I was like a straight A student. And I didn't really go and party. I had no interest in it. Like my friends did. I might go out, but I'd just be standing there like listening to music while they were doing stuff. Like I just wasn't that kid. And that doesn't make me any better or worse. I'm just saying, like, appearances aren't always what they seem, guys. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, that's a side note to endings. It's a little bit of a side topic, but yeah, it's a good one. It's a good side topic.
We were there. I figured I'd just speak on that.
Yeah, don't judge a book.
I said jinkos.
And yeah, so the hardest part for me was getting out of that mentality of, and it's a Virgo thing, it is, to serve someone else, to be like in service. And like as a kid, to be in service to your parents is a horrible thing when your parents treat your kids like a business. It's horrid. And it took me a very, very long time to get to the point where I was just like, no, this needs to end. And this needs to end now. And it ended for me the day that my mother threw my two sisters and the then 2-year-old and 6-month-year-old nephew and niece out on the street because they'd argued with her then boyfriend, who's now her husband, who is a horrible human being. And the social services people asked her 3 times if she would take them back so they didn't have to go into homes, etc. She refused 3 times, and they went into like government care until they could get assisted living. A 2-year-old, a 6-month-old, and my 2 sisters, her daughters, because they argued with her boyfriend. And that to me was the last twig of the bridge, being like, nope, nope. That's just so far beyond what I can understand in my heart, in my ethics, in my morality. It's so far beyond that I cannot and will not engage with that in my life anymore. And there have been attempts by that side of them to manipulate for the most part, because the messages I get now, they read like manipulation. Like I'm trying to remember the last one I got, because it was something like, oh, I want us to bury the hatchet, preferably not in my back, is the last thing my mother said to me. And I'm like, you haven't spoken to me for 4 years, and this is the first thing that gets said. Like, hi, Mary Morning. So how do we get to the point where ending, that's an interesting thing though, because that's getting to the point where you absolutely feel that you have no choice, and then you put an ending into practice, which in itself is resistance, because you don't want to do something.
It's like you have no more skin left to burn.
Yeah.
Holding the rope.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing, because I think we don't talk about it in publicly, the fact that it's okay to make the decision before that point, before you've gotten to the point of no return. Because I think on one side of things, because this is kind of twofold, I've seen it both ways, is on one side of things, people are very much like, oh, well, unless you've tried and tried and tried, then, you know, you're a bad person. And you see people talk about marriages this way, because it's like, oh, well, in my generation, we worked on our marriages. We tried with our marriages. And I've seen people who got out of abusive marriages, like physically abusive marriages, come up against that kind of nonsense. And I'm thinking the courage it takes people to get out of physically or emotionally or mentally abusive marriages is so high. And then they come up against people saying that sort of thing to them. And I'm just like, with that face. But then on the other side, we do have kind of a trash culture, where people are like, oh, you don't get on with this person right now, well, then they must be toxic. Cut them from your life.
I really think it all boils down to your threshold and like first of all, like, what are you getting out of it? And the day that you deem that isn't an equal payoff for you, you're going to change it. Like people... a Virgo that I knew once told me, and it's actually not Joey, guys. A Virgo that I knew and worked with once told me, people only change when they're made to, when they have to. And that can mean your choice as well. Like when you get to a point where you just, like Joey said, like that was the last straw and then that was it. There's this like scale that just tips when one becomes, you know, like one outweighs the other in what you're getting out of this. And what I mean by that is not like using the other person, but like we get things from having relationships with people. Like it's just like, that's what it is. And, you know, whether that is like maybe us feeling like we deserve that punishment, or us, you know, feeling, or maybe needing to believe that we are close to them or something like that. Like that's still something that we're getting. And so I think that there's also an element of like, where is that scale tip for you? And it changes with every person, you know? So I think it's less about like this one line that everybody has where it's, you know, one end or the other. And it's more about like, you know, your personal situation and what you're feeling you deserve, what you believe, what you choose to believe. Shit castles or flowers. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. You know what I heard? I heard Cris was cheating on me with another Virgo. That's what I heard.
Out of all of that, that's what you got?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I had to go because the Amazon man decided to turn up at the door the minute I started recording because, you know, life.
I was basically just saying that there's a threshold within each person that changes. The scales tip for different reasons. And so that we will remain in a situation a lot of times, however long, if we are getting something out of it, no matter what that something is, even if we believe that we need to suffer or something like that, like the scale can tip. And that tips in different ways for different people.
Absolutely. I was thinking about this with my blog post the other day, and it's slightly off topic a bit, but it's basically about how perspective changes how we interact with the world in general. But I was thinking about it on terms of like a spiritual cycle and what kind of is acceptable, because that's kind of what Cris has been talking about a little bit, is Cris the Virgo cheater.
I am now the Virgo cheater, apparently.
The Virgo cheater. Betrayal. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, we're kidding. We're kidding. And it really is, there's a whole lot of perspective about what constitutes when something needs to actually end. And so when we're talking about endings and ending cycles, that's hugely different from individual to individual, because what really bothers one individual, what is not acceptable to one individual, might not even bother or even come onto the scale of bothering another individual. And I can say this really solidly as somebody who's been through a lot of crap, that certain things will trigger me, and to outside people, they'll be like, what? And I'll be like, you don't understand. I can't explain to you the thing that happens.
Yeah. She and I have even done that with each other, and we'll be like, why? I don't get it. And the other one's just like, bah! And then we've had to like talk about it and explain, you know, from the other side and kind of understand. But yeah, like every person is different, man.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Everyone's threshold or point of getting fed up, as Freaky Unicorn said, is different. I don't want to type that space in the chat. Stop.
You're right over there.
I was gesturing, okay?
So we've kind of touched already upon why we resist change in certain ways, because we talked about how we feel that we ought to be and how we ought to behave and how we how we ought not to end certain relationships as if it makes us a bad person for being like, or even just not necessarily, because that's the other thing that I just thought in my head went, woo! Because sometimes ending doesn't mean like cut out and gone. Yeah. Like Cris has already said that sometimes you can like love somebody but not have them in your life. And that is a kind of ending in of itself. And even when you kind of like downscale relationships, so it's like not having somebody in your life every single day anymore because lines have been crossed or something, and you take a step back, and you might not even be like blocking them out of your life entirely. It might just be creating a little bit more space, a little bit more personal room. That is, in effect, a kind of ending. So there is like a scale of this. It's not literally just like, boom.
Well, and there's, I mean, even looking at friends, right? Like there's difference between like the time you would make for like your best friends and the time you would make for maybe acquaintances. That doesn't mean you don't like your acquaintances. It just means that you're going to make more time with your best friends. It is what it is. Yeah. Like, I don't know. That is a kind of ending, though. To be like, you know what? I can't really be with this person this often. I need some space. I want to be your friend. I want to be around, but like I need some space and do it. Like,
unless it's me, because you can't get space from me. Never. Never, never, never. I'm kidding. I give Cris space when she sleeps. I came across
I'm gonna wake up, guys, and she's gonna have flown here from Scotland and just be like chilling by my bed in my face like, never sleep.
If I did that, Cris would be so fucking excited, you have no idea. So don't listen to that bullshit right there.
It would be instant. Like I might hit you at first because being in my face, it's a thing. Especially like I'm like a grumpy bear when I first wake up. But like after I hit you, I would be like, "Oh my god, it's Joey!" And then I would lose my shit. But you know, after I lost my shit on your face. But
yeah,
you know, either way, yeah, do that. I'll sleep with like pillows on my hands from now on, just in case.
Okay, just in case. So Mary Morning says, I came across some elitism this past weekend. I could have been upset, but I thought instead, man, that person wasn't for me. Their perspective was different than mine.
Concrete.
Concrete. So in the video that I will try and get rendered today or tomorrow, I was talking about the difference between planting yourself in concrete and pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I was talking about how they feed into each other. I'm kind of ruining the video, but hey. And how they're both basically reasons.
No, she's not. Go see it when it comes out.
Oh no, there'll probably be plenty of good stuff in there, I promise. And it's just me. It's just me on my own. I'm doing a video for once. It barely ever happens anymore, apparently. So
I mean, there was that spooky box that I crashed.
Yeah. Asbjorn crashed yesterday's or day before one, and he just walked through, and I'm like, professionalism, you know. The world, mind you, they'll probably get more views because the world could see his butt because people are obsessed.
I am not obsessed. No offense.
No, I didn't mean you. I just meant there are people out there who are obsessed with Asbjorn's arse.
Yeah.
It's weird. Weird. So, planting yourself in concrete is something that I've said before, and it's something that I sort of came up with and kind of channeled really when Cris was going through something. And the idea of planting yourself in concrete is that you're putting yourself somewhere where you don't belong. And this feeds into endings because you're refusing to allow a situation to end which you know doesn't feed you. You can't get your roots in the ground. You can't plant yourself. You can't pull up the nutrients that you actually need. You can't grow. And you're putting yourself in a situation with people or whatever it is, job, etc., because you think you should, or because you've been told that you should. And this is something that you should do for whatever reason. And maybe it's you doing it, because we do that to ourselves. Oh, this is something that I should be doing because I'm a witch. This is something that I should be doing because I'm a whatever. And a woman,
to be legit, I have to do it this way.
Yeah. And the problem with that is you're basically making yourself small to fit in. You're not allowing a situation to end, which basically by ending it, you become who you're meant to be. You grow, you flourish, you become who you should always have been. And that's a process. It's not, enemy now, but
yeah.
By taking yourself out of that situation, by allowing that situation to end, you then allow yourself to grow. And the comfort zone thing, by contrast, is more of a personal thing, but it can be fed by other people's voices, which is like, I'm afraid of what's out there, and and if I go out of there, what's going to happen, and that sort of thing. That can be fed into by depression and anxiety and all things like that, which is makes coming outside of the comfort zone thing even harder. But I will say that pushing oneself outside of one's comfort zone is something that I fully understand and empathize with people who have difficulty with it. I'm a Virgo with a Virgo rising and a Taurus moon. Guess what stubborn means? I don't like change. I will put it on the table now, and I have been like that since I was a kid. I have always felt like I didn't like change. And I remember like moving schools, and it terrified me in a lot of ways. And I needed it. I needed to change schools. But it was absolutely terrifying for me. And I remember like going through all these cycles of like being very afraid. I can remember being sat in the car, like shaking on the first day of going to a different school. And it was really bizarre. Are you off again? She's off again. Wait, what is going on? I think we've been Cris cleaned.
Yes. I'm okay. Sorry. I was listening, and then like it's playing to the side, and I'm like, this is really fuzzy. Why? And then I was like, I touched my camera the other day. Crap. So I muted myself as not to distract from you talking, but then you started talking about me cleaning my camera. So
well, that's all I could see was like whoop, whoop, whoop.
Maybe next time I should just be like, I'm going to clean my camera. Proceed.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, carry on. Yes, stream of thoughts.
And something that I know is true for Cris and is true for me is like often the fear of a thing is worse than the situation itself. So in terms of endings, like the fear of something ending and the stuff that our head tells us will happen from something ending is usually 1,000 times worse than the truth of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's the anxiety about it, not the actual thing that happens.
And I think we hit ourselves up, we freak ourselves out, we tell ourselves the worst is going to happen. We're going to be careful with that shit as well, because we're spiritual manifestors, and we're witches and pathworkers, and however you want to label yourself or not. We manifest what we believe, and we put too much of our emotions into something, put too much of a fear response into something, and guess what we do? we
I think that's
manifest
why
it.
shadow work is really important. Like, it's part of the know yourself thing, like the whole know thyself. Like, that is, I mean, one of the things that I always tell people to look into is like psychology. And I mean, that's why I love Kelly Ann's videos too. Is like, some people might not say she's very outright witchy. Those people would be wrong, in my opinion, because it's part of knowing thyself. Like, you have to be responsible for your energy. How do you do that? Well, you gotta realize what energy you're holding, what you're entertaining, whether in your foreground or in the subconscious, and what's going on there. What are you feeding? What are you not feeding? You know, those things are important. In whatever way you're doing it, because, you know, shadow work and that kind of thing is different to all people, but like, whatever way you're doing it, I feel like it's fundamental, not only to that, but just to being like a decent human being. You know?
Yeah, there's that. For sure. Decent human being. Be one. Okay.
I do want to say, I think Morwenna said earlier, you know, forgiving also doesn't mean that you want them in your life. I don't want them in their own life. No. And that's true. And that was part of the whole, like, they don't have to be around all the time thing. Like, you can wish someone well and forgive them for stuff, and then not have them around all the time. Boundaries. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Freaky Unicorn says, that's so true. I have such a doomsday mentality, always scaring myself. I know those feels.
Yeah, I know that feel too. The problem is as well, is if you've had a difficult life, which I'm going to say a lot of pagan and people in that vein have, because a lot of people come to paganism to kind of get a sense of control over their lives. Like, that's effectively what witchcraft is for a lot of people. It's like learning to understand the world around us and learning to control us and understand ourselves, and then the world around us as well. So we affect and influence change. And I feel like a lot of people who come to witchcraft, not all, obviously, but a lot of them have had difficult lives in one way or another, like outside of your standard difficultness. Like, it's not the people who have, like, you know, struggled a little bit here and there, but on the whole, it's fine. I feel like a lot of people who come to, like, the witchcraft and pagan elements are people who have seen real struggle at some point in their lives, and they have dealt with really difficult elements and really deep, and they've gone through that dark night of the soul a lot of the time before they've even fully delved into witchcraft. It's a generalization, and it's not going to be true for everybody, but I feel that it's overarchingly a fair generalization. And because we have seen a lot of that difficulty, that kind of like reaffirms that in our mind. Like, oh, I went through this circumstance where I was afraid this was going to happen, and this change was going to happen, and this change happened, and it was all for the worse. So now I'm terrified of every time something ends or something changes. And I will look at that in a minute. So it can be difficult if we've kind of had experience that reaffirms that for us, and it's getting to the point where, like, we cut off what we think we know, because it's not really what we know, but kind of like what we've taught ourselves from experiences. Like, we see the cloud and maybe more than the silver lining a lot of the times, because we remember how difficult situations were, and we forget what we got out of it.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's oftentimes that we, like you said, we remember the bad shit more than we remember the good shit.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that the bad shit doesn't exist, or like ignore it or anything like that. But it's a balance. Big surprise. I'm talking about balance again. But it is, though. I mean, there's a quote by My Dying Bride that's like, it's sad that in our what was it? It's something like, in our sadness we gather thorns for flowers. And that's probably one of my favorite quotes, even though I'm misquoting it right now. And it's true. I mean, anytime we get something nice, a lot of us will expect the bottom to fall out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is great. What's going to happen now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this new thing came up. This new opportunity. That's awesome. What if I'm not good enough? What if something falls through? What if I risk everything and then I lose it all?
Mm-hmm. And that's still an ending fear in a way, because you're afraid to begin something new, because you're stepping outside of what you know, and you end that comfort zone to get into the new job situation, whatever it is. And it's still a fear of things ending.
Yeah. And the resistance to jump. It's like, being on like a, I don't know, what is it? Like, okay, like a Mario game or something. Guys, bear with me. So, you know how like the screen will move with it and it'll like make you have to go forward? And if you don't jump, you fall and you die anyway? It's like that kind of thing that's happening. Like the screen is moving. Life is moving regardless of if you move or not. And it's like we're like hugging the wall of the screen. Like, no, this isn't what happens. No, this is not what's going on. And it's like, yes, we have control. We have control of our choices and what we choose in that situation. And sometimes it's just better just to jump. Speaking from experience.
And me.
We do a lot more damage hugging that wall sometimes. And you know what? Hey, sometimes we need the damage from that wall to learn a lesson, even. I mean, that's I'm not saying like it's a right and wrong situation, but that's kind of what I picture in my head is like, well, you're slowly being dragged into this pit. You can either jump in it and then, discover a chest of gold down there maybe and, fight past those snakes, or you can just be shoved in it unprepared and then have to fight them anyway. So
jump. And then it's your choice. So Jen Blackmon says, I have accepted my crappy childhood, but I don't forgive it. I don't think it's for me to forgive. So I have a strange relationship with forgiveness, because as a survivor of sexual abuse at the hands of my father, I don't think I will ever forgive him. And I've been told by, there have been people who are like, oh, you should forgive him. It's healthier for you. And it means he doesn't have any control over you anymore. And I'm like, okay, he doesn't have control over me anymore. I've worked damn hard to get to that point. I still have elements of trauma abuse syndrome, which is nightmares, and certain things freak me out more than they would normal people. But that's, to me, echoes or shadows of the abuse. It's not that I'm handing over power and anything. And I don't know, maybe this is like a more organic witch thing, and I'm just like, he doesn't deserve my forgiveness, and I'm not giving it. And in my way, that's my power. I'm like, no, he doesn't get any more from me. Do you know what I mean? And he doesn't have any power over me because I will not have him in my life. I will not let him influence or affect my life. I've created the barrier, I've created the boundary. I've just been like, as far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me. I'm done. That has ended. I won't forgive it. There are a number of reasons why not as well. One, he has never asked for forgiveness. He has never wanted forgiveness. After everything happened, he went around telling people that the children caused him problems, and they acted out, and that's why he was dealing with stuff. So that's what he told the general public. It was all the kids' fault. And he then, as much as I dislike my mother, he then basically went and did one over on my mother, where he ran the joint company into the ground, stashed away a load of money, etc., with his other business partner, all to get my mother out of the business, then declared it bankrupt, set it right back up again. So the business is right there as it has always been, except my mother got completely cut out of it. And at that point, my mother was supporting all three of us kids. Me less so, because I was over 18 by that point. And he then went and remarried someone else with daughters. who were 13 or 14.
Ooh.
And I did my damnedest to try and find these women to try and warn them. But so as far as I'm concerned, no. Forgiveness is not a thing you deserve. So, and I don't know, there are people who will be like, well, that makes you weak and all the rest of it. But to be honest, that's my choice. So I feel you.
Again, different people, different situations, different boats entirely. So it's like you do what you got to do for you.
Yeah.
What makes you happy and healthy.
And yeah, there is that kind of gargoyle mistress, as you said, that I'm sick of hearing. You should forgive someone even if they don't deserve it because it's for you to heal. Love you too, Random. Take care. It is one of these weird things that kind of gets like pushed on people. Like, this is how you should behave. This is how you should forgive. This is how you should interact with that situation. That's one of those spiritual things that happens. It is odd.
Well,
it is odd.
I think only you can say how it sits in your energy field. You know what I mean? Only you can say if it's something that is holding you back and you know there is a need there, or if there isn't and the need is actually just to cut it completely and move on. You know what I mean? Like, cutting things, endings can mean something very different for different people. And resistance even is different for different people. Some people, like, there was a point in my life where people were telling me that I was resisting things, that I was, you know, I should just keep going and just try harder.
Oh God, I hate that.
You know, like, you don't care, you're not trying hard enough.
Just get over it.
If you were, then this wouldn't be the situation. And it's like, okay, but my gut was screaming, just jump, just get the fuck out of there. You don't need another plan, just go. And there was this, there was also the shame which goes into resistance with running, with leaving it too quickly, right? With the whole, like, how you were saying earlier about, like, a lot of older couples being in really shitty relationships, like really bad, and them being like, nope, I've been here for 45 years. And it's like, okay, that is not really the life I would want to have personally, but it's one of those things where, like, there was a lot of shame around that too, around like just dropping trowel and going. And I, in my gut, was like, nope, this is what I feel. And it caught me up for a while, you know, because that is what I was being told by, like, even my best friends were telling me, like, what are you doing? Like, just try harder. You're not doing anything. And it was like, no, I had called it like a couple years before that happened. I remember I walked up to her and I'm like, I'm not going to be here. And she was like, what? What do you mean by that? Looking back, I assumed it sounded really fatalistic. But, you know, I'm not going to be here. I just know, like, something, the wind has shifted, if you will. And I just know I'm not going to be here. I don't know how. I'm not looking. This was with a job. I'm not looking for another job. There's nothing that I'm actively doing. I'm just telling you something has shifted and I will not be here. I don't know if it's going to be a month. I don't know if it's going to be a year, but something is coming. Winter is coming. That's what it was.
Winter is coming, yeah.
But that's what ended up happening. And then when it was actually going down, people were like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I'll try, guys, for you. And then it got to a certain point where I was like, I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to listen because this is creating more pain than just like leaving. It's fighting the ending that you know is coming. And listening to yourself and knowing when to jump. And if forgiveness is something that you're holding out for, then okay. If it's not, then okay. But it's like when you have your blueprint.
So I was listening to that, and one thing that I was thinking about is like, I wonder how many times elements of guilt or shame come into our resistance to your endings. So how much of the time is it a feeling of guilt that gets in the way of feeling obligated? Because in that scenario, there was them putting it out there as if you were obligated to be in that position, that situation, job, whatever, and you're here for life, kind of thing. And there's kind of like that shaming you into why you should be here. Like there are people who depend on you, and there's a lot of that in job circles. Like people put all this shame on like their staff, and it's like the staff aren't getting paid enough to deal with this nonsense. Seriously.
Gosh. It's such a big topic for me. Yeah, to answer Mary's question, yes. There's this catch-22 thing too, and the thing is you can't even always be angry at the bosses either, because they're in the same situation most of the time. There is this race for approval to hit this glass ceiling that just doesn't exist. The normal standard should be 10 and they hand you 30. And they go, why didn't you get anything done? And so there's constantly this feeling of lack of accomplishment, which deteriorates self-worth. Yeah, like you're not productive at all. And this isn't for someone who like goes in and just doesn't do shit. Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a situation where the standards are so high that you're expected to be multiple people, and then yelled at for not doing that, even though you've tried and busted your ass to be those multiple people. And that is it's not fair to me at all. There are things that come up, people call off, and it's a situation that happens. But when it is an ongoing thing, when it becomes a society of, never living up to that, a society of desperation because you feel like you need the approval through that. And then the very people who you're looking to approval for are also in the same situation with their bosses. And they're thinking, okay, if I just climb higher, get to the top of the ladder, it won't be like that. But there really isn't a top of the ladder. Not like that. What's promised, it's not a carrot that's actually there that you can bite.
Yep.
It's like a wax fruit, man. Don't bite it. And that's not saying that if you bust your ass in some circles and some jobs that you can achieve that, and if that's a thing that works for you, then awesome. But I am saying in a situation where it is an unhealthy environment like that, it's a no-win situation. And I was in a situation where people were pushing me and trying to encourage me and saying, like, what do you mean? Like, out of desperation, like, I need to be here, because where else will I go? Where else will take me, right? Because why would you leave if you're not living up to standards? No one else wants you.
God, there's that whole topic right there.
Yeah. But what I found is that when I did, and I went other places, they were like, holy shit, why do you work so fast? Holy crap, how do you do this? You're noticing so many details. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's because the standards that were actually there were way higher than most other places. And while that's good, it's also very detrimental. If your people don't feel encouraged, if they don't feel worthy, if they don't feel a sense of self-worth and pride, that's so damaging. But also, we as adults, shit castles or flowers, have a point where we can make a decision. And as witches, there's also an element of trusting in spirit, trusting in our ancestors, trusting in our gods to come through for us.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're following our blueprint, like I said, shit'll just fall into place.
Mm.
It might look scary, but when you get there, it should fall into place.
With the job thing as well, there's an element, I think, that the way that jobs are set up now disconnect us from who we are as human beings and disconnect us from, in ways, from our ancestors. Because if you think of a tribe mentality, how we were when things were much more simpler, you had people with particular roles in a unit, in a village, in a tribe, and they would all support one another. And there would be people who would hunt and people who would gather and people who would, you know, make bowls or reeds or whatever that was, and people who would fish. And there was just elements of, it was a community. Whereas now it's very much like, you must do this job, but this job means you need to do 8 million things within this one job. And if you don't do those things, then we'll get someone else because you're not a valued member of this tribe, this team, this whatever. And honestly, the amount that some people get paid is shocking. I don't know do you have minimum wage in America?
Yes.
You do. I wasn't sure if you did, but even the minimum wage here, I'm sure is like £8.
Yeah, it's really cheap. And then there's also jobs that are actually lower because they get tips and stuff. It's not, yeah. Which I'm told tipping is like this foreign concept to the UK.
No, it's not foreign.
Because I've heard a lot of people be like, "You what?"
It's in the UK. You get it a little bit more with restaurants, but there are probably a lot of English people who would refuse to tip,
right?
Because in a lot of restaurants, they actually put a service thing on the bill. So there's a service charge within the bill overall, and then people don't get. So people refuse to tip the individual waiters and waitresses. And I think what happens with that is the waiters and waitresses get shafted by that service charge.
Yeah. Hats off to the waitresses and the delivery people and like all those people, because it's rough to make me. Like
anyone in retail, you have my deepest sympathies, because I've worked in retail. I've worked in like the food retail industries and like small cafes and things like that.
Don't get me wrong. Like, there's been places with retail that I loved and delivery I've loved. Like, but it's the place, it's the managers. The managers set the tone. You have to have managers that are leaders. And again, if someone said, you know, I'm not ungrateful to my last job and my abusive boss because they pushed me to find my personality. You know, no, there were definitely lessons that I took out of that place. Don't get me wrong. Like, there were lessons that I am definitely grateful for. That doesn't have to mean that I condone the mindset that still lives there.
Ooh. Michael Scott Edel, for tip staff, the wage is $2.50 an hour against the minimum wage of $7.50 an hour here in New Jersey. Okay, your minimum wage is a lot lower than ours then, because our minimum wage is £8.
Yeah,
which would be $12.
Like, you literally pay your bills off of tips.
However, I will say that
it's such a big deal. At least here.
Although I will say the cost of living in the UK is a lot higher. Like the cost of rent and things is a lot higher in the UK. Okay,
it depends on where you are here. Like, California is a lot higher than, say, like Ohio.
Well, that's true here too. But where I used to live, it was nearly £1,000 a month, just rent, nothing else, and that's pounds, not dollars. So Joel is asking if we can give advice if he feels like his marriage is being ripped apart because his wife has converted to Christianity, and it's causing arguments.
Well, I guess it would depend on a lot of things. Like, why did she convert, first of all? Like, is this something that she's doing for her? Is this something she feels pressured in by somewhere else? Like, what is that, first of all? Second of all, like, is there a mutual respect there between you two regardless? Because if she's leaving for other reasons and those are rooted in a disrespect for paganism, then that's an issue. And it's very major, and you guys should definitely sit down. Either way, like, I agree with the person who told you to sit down and talk with each other. And, you know, make it clear, like, look, this isn't a hostile thing. Like, you know, start with I love you, and then after that go into, like, look, we need to work on some stuff. We need to come to an understanding between us, because when you say these things, this is what I feel, and when you say these things, this is what I feel. So how can we communicate clearer with each other and more respectfully? And you both have to be willing to do that also.
Even if you get to the point where you basically take a religious discussion off the table, that you live and let live, which may be what you have to do, because I know that's what some relationships basically entail.
I was just talking about this a little bit the other day. So, like, my husband isn't pagan. He is, he's agnostic / atheist, depending on his mood that day, as I like to say. There might be some out there might be nothing out there to him, but he doesn't really care either way. And then I'm over here, like, all about it. And the thing is like, that isn't the only way that you have a relationship with people. You can completely take that off the table and have a plethora of life to talk about. It's possible. And it's not a hiding of oneself either, because, I mean, like, he knows I'm pagan. He knows what I'm doing. He knows what this is. He knows not to set his drink on my altar. Like, there's a respect thing, but it doesn't mean you have to include each other in it. You know what I mean? Like, I talked about sex magic stuff. I don't do sex magic stuff with him. Why? Because he's not pagan. He's not a witch. Why? If he was okay with that, that'd be another, you know, like, that's a conversation to have individually, each relationship. I'm not saying just don't. But for us, like, there's so much other shit. But the core problem isn't the fact that you have different beliefs then. The core problem is the respect there and the communication there.
Which is what you need to talk about. You need to talk about the fact that as part of a marriage, the idea is to love and honor each other throughout life, and respect is a building block. And if you feel that elements of your life, whatever they might be, are not being respected, it means sitting down and trying to have a conversation. Yeah, freaky unicorn. My husband is hardcore Methodist and I'm pagan. We've been married 25 years.
Yeah. And for those of you guys that don't know, I actually grew up in a multi-religious household. So, like, my mom is pagan. My dad was Southern Baptist. It can exist.
Yeah. Absolutely. Are there any more questions? Because we are approaching the 20-minute mark.
Yeah, because I will say also that, if you don't mind, Joey, I was going to say where I'm going next. Okay, so after this ends, I will be over at the Random Witches channel doing a live chat with her. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll be over there too.
She's going to be sore-throated.
We're going to be chilling, hanging out. So
you're going to be hoarse by the end of all of this live chatting.
You know, mostly I'm just going to be hungry because I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Bad Cris. That's always what happens. Either that or, like, you guys don't know out there. I think I might have shown you once or twice. But, like, I'll have, like, a bagel with cream cheese or something sitting in front of me. And, like, whenever Joey talks, I'll mute my mic and be like...
Watch out for that next live chat.
Yeah.
We should have like a compilation video of all the times you do that, and it can have like the little Mario noises, like ding.
Oh
ding,
my gosh! You know what we have to put in
ding.
that one live chat where I said something about being a fat kid and the ice cream truck came by in the background, and I was like, "Feel my power! I have summoned it." Yes. Yeah. That's probably one of my favorite live chat moments so far. That when you got the bottles and you were like,
Yeah.
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 Totally, yeah. It's about communication. I mean, it's a marriage. It's a partnership. You got to be, if not on the same page, you got to be able to read the same page. Motorbikes. Thanks for that.
I'm not sure what you summoned this time. You summoned bikers this time rather than ice cream.
Yeah. Well, there's like a strip of land behind my house, and a lot of the teenagers and stuff like that, the neighbors will race dirt bikes up and down it. I don't really care because I sleep pretty solid, so whatever.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to be the same as somebody. Like, even if you're both pagan, you're going to be practicing and theorizing in different ways. Like, you should have your own brain, like your own way of thinking, your own way of...
Well, and also there's an element of like when you find something new, there's also like a want to share it with someone, right? Because you're excited. And sometimes that can also be, well, it can be overkill, or it can be also misinterpreted too. So that, again, that's something that she could be really excited about what she's finding. And she thinks, she's like, oh my God, share this with me. And you're like, I'm not talking about this. No. And, you know, that's a miscommunication that's happening there, is because you're like, look, I feel disrespected. And she's like, now I feel disrespected because you don't want to like be happy with me. And that doesn't mean having to believe, but that might be what she thinks, for all we know. And that's a conversation that needs to happen, you know?
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. It's very difficult to know from an outside perspective.
Hand in hand. Like, you know, first of all, like if you skip hand in hand, like, and one is taller than the other, like you're gonna have a problem. Someone's arm's gonna be falling out of joint because like someone skips a little faster. Look, leg length, man, it's important. But like that doesn't mean you can't just like run alongside each other happily. Like,
okay, so Michael has just said I didn't like her putting things on my altar or wanting me to adjust my personal devotional space for hers. That's a space communication issue. That's a respect issue. I've had this in the past where people interfere with your sacred space and your altar, knowing that it is a sacred space and knowing that it means something to you. So it doesn't matter what it is, as if they know that it means something to you and they're interfering with it and like basically belittling it by being like, oh no, I'm moving that so my God can be here.
If they know that it means something to you, that's a precursor in there that's like, have you made it perfectly clear? And I don't mean like just a little like under your breath thing, like perfectly clear about that, because that's communication. But then if it still continues, yeah, that's a disrespect. That's a lack of respect there. Absolutely. Also, though, I will say that's what I do like about, like for me personally, my husband and I have our own rooms where we have our own stuff. Like there's the witchy cave and then there's the man cave. And anything that I wouldn't want a lot of stuff like, you know, touched or left or, you know, interfered with is in here. And then all of the other altars that are outside are much more casual, I guess would be a better word for that.
The casual altar.
It's not that they have less meaning, but okay, so guys, like, look, I grew up with a pagan mom. So I was a kid with these altars around. And so there's a level of like, okay, this blanket we used on the back of our couch growing up. I've used it to sleep with, but it was also used as an altar cloth on my table when I was priestess. Why? It's still a sacred item, but it's used by us. Back in the day, do you think they had room for multiple brooms? This is my magical broom. This is my house sweeping broom.
No.
They probably use the same broom. So to some extent, there's also a level of like the things that are more community involved, if you will, or family involved is out there. The stuff that I'm like, nope, no one touches this but me, or it's very fragile, or like da-da-da, I separate and put in here. Now, with relationships, that's difficult if you don't have that space, and I realize that. And so, yeah, it'd have to be down to a like, look, these are the things that I don't like. What are the things that you don't like? I won't do them, you don't do yours. Like, there we go. If not, then like I'm an asshole and I would probably take the cup and put it on theirs every time because I'm a dick. But that's after I had made sure that it was clear that I didn't like it and they still did it.
Yep.
And I get that part from my mom, because my mom was the queen of, oh, you're going to do this to me? Okay, let's do it to you. What do you think now?
Mm-hmm.
Probably shouldn't do that, huh? Okay. Walk a mile in someone's moccasins. Got it.
I had a date and they decided to drop their keys on my altar. It made my eye twitch. Did you date no, though?
Yeah.
That would be my first question. Like, a date might be less likely to understand than...
Yeah, because to them it could just look like a table with knickknacks.
A fancy table. You know? Yeah, a fancy table. Are there any more questions? Because we're...
Questions.
Because we've got to finish on the hour.
Very respectful of her views and practice when she is not home, but lately she's been grabbing my stuff, throwing it outside or in the trash, smashing and setting things on fire. Yeah, so that's like a clear invasion.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's horrifying. Not about this topic, but I do have a question. Is that okay? Yes, of course. That's Moonday's Witch. Yes, of course, by all means.
Yeah. This is question time, guys. Questions. Let's do it because I got to go.
She's got somewhere else to be.
I do. It's all right. Hey guys, it's cool though because tomorrow Joey and I will be on my channel. So
yeah,
check us out. We were overdue, so we're live marathoning.
What are you talking about? We do 2 a week normally. And on Saturday, I have Kenzie on my channel.
Yay!
Talking about the Morrigan.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen, we did do one on her channel a while back too. So Kenzie in the chat, check her out.
There's nothing wrong with Halloween decor. He's just wrong.
I refuse to believe it. Yes.
I lost all my Halloween stuff. I'm so sad.
I have, let's see, can you see some? Well, most of my skulls and stuff are.
Yeah, it's cool. Although Jen sent me a couple of really beautiful Halloween candle holders, which are gorgeous. Can you have a discussion on shadow elements, or have you already done it?
That's like all of our talks.
How do you mean shadow elements? Do you mean like the shadow sides of the elements as in earth, air, fire, water, or do you mean shadow elements of...
Or like elements of shadow work.
Yeah.
That was how I took it. But yeah, that's true. She could mean like the elements. Awkward moment. Hey, can you move your keys? They're on my altar where I worship Satan. No, I'm just
kidding. No, I'm kidding. Beelzebub.
Yeah. Camp Crystal Lake. Boom.
Yeah, your shadow elements is in air, earth, fire, water.
Oh, okay. We haven't really done one on that.
No, we can do that. We can do that. I mean, I'm gearing up to do some more Shadow Ogham stuff, so we can definitely do that. Okay.
Yes.
Moon-Dazed Witch, question about how to know what goddess is trying to contact you. I did a ritual to Hecate, and during that ritual, I felt a presence. And when I looked, it was a tall giantess figure shrouded in black.
Did a ritual to Hecate. During that, I felt the presence. Do you feel like it was Hecate? I don't care what you've read. Do you feel like it was Hecate? Or do you feel like it was someone else? That's where you start. Because usually they're going to test you, especially if it's a dark goddess. They're going to test you anyway to trust what you feel, not what you see.
Mm-hmm.
Chaotic this and that. What is the meaning of life? 42.
Oh, damn it. I was going to say 42. Fine. Always look on the bright side of life.
You guys,
I'll do that instead.
Okay, look, I'm going to do a podcast teaser right now. We started, like, really laying down recordings and stuff yesterday, and I'm so excited. You guys have no idea.
You guys have no idea.
You're going to think we're insane. All of you are going to be like, what are they doing? And then you're going to laugh heartily.
Mm-hmm. I hope you're all going to laugh because we were cracking up for the best part of 5 hours doing it.
The entire time.
Okay, so the thing about knowing what goddess it is a perspective thing. And this is what I always say to people who ask me about whether or not it's the Morrigan, because I can't tell you if it is the Morrigan. So people asking.
Yep. And I can't tell you.
Tegan just had her baby. Congratulations Yay! To Tegan. Of course we are. We always go for 2 hours. We're not basic. We go long. We love you long time.
But yeah.
Anyway, what was I saying? Okay.
Yes. You were saying I can't tell you that it's Hecate. I can't tell you that it's Morrigan. And I was adding I can't tell you that it's hell.
Yeah. Because ultimately, yes, there will be links on. We will advertise the hell out of the podcast. You will not miss it.
Way ahead of time.
And
for once.
Yeah. So the thing is nobody can tell you that it is or isn't a particular goddess, even if they've had a lot of experience with that particular god or goddess, because the way that we perceive deity is dependent on who we are as an individual. That's the way we see the world, the way we feel the world, the way we interact with the world, what we expect to see, and then with dark goddess or god's energy, and I mean dark like that, not goddess or god, but the dark bit, which I hate.
Goddess, yeah. Right.
Dark. Don't smite me, goddess. Yeah. Is that they're quite often they're shapeshifter energy anyway, and because they have transcended through time and culture, they might take on different elements. They might show up differently in order to test you. That might be the point. And for a lot of the goddesses and goddesses, they want you to be questioning what it is that you've seen and know. And for a lot of people, I'm like, light a candle, ask the universe. Just put yourself out there and be like, I want to know. And I'm like, just take it to its simplest form and ask.
Also, like, yeah, like, first of all, just ask them. Second of all, like, don't be so quick to get the answer, because half the time it's the journey to it that they're trying to teach you. Yeah.
It's because you're getting ready to work with someone else, Charlie. It's not because they're abandoning you. It's because something else is coming.
I don't think they really abandon us like that. Like, I think they may step out, but I think on some level they're always with us somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if they're like watching from a distance across the field, like. Mm-hmm.
Well, Morrigan does that all the time. Like, people freak out that the Morrigan does this, but the Morrigan is a silent watcher. So the Morrigan will full on step back and be quiet and like watch what you're doing with the lesson she's giving you. And some people freak out because they've had the Morrigan is very full on, usually in the beginning, very, very full on, like in your face, in your dreams, in every sign from all over here, there, and everywhere. You're getting bombarded with messages, and then suddenly, zoop.
Hell is, or at least for me, she was a little more subtle. Because like she used to stand by my bed at night, and I didn't even realize until I was like 20 years old that it was her.
That's not subtle. That's you being slow.
Yeah, no, but I used to feel like I was protected and stuff. I just took it as, you know, the guardian, as I called them. And I remember I saw a card when I was younger, and that was like, oh wow, this sticks to me, and like, oh yeah. But I never worked with it any further because it just wasn't time. And so like there's an element of like time. And then when I was ready, she rose up from the fucking ground in my hallway, all like, and that's her tendrils, guys. I just realized that wasn't very descriptive. And was just like, hey, I'm your other grandmother, essentially. And I was like, what about Hecate? And she's like, both, yeah. Whatever, yeah. Pretty much. And then it was like, oh, okay. And it continued on. So, like, sometimes it's one of those things where it's like they're around this whole time, but there's a certain point where you put the puzzle pieces together and it snaps. And I think it's a nature thing. Everything happens in its own time. Not all the flowers bloom at once. Some of them bloom in fall. Some of them don't bloom on the same day, even. Everything in its own time. And I think explore that, sit in it, and like be with it. Ask, yeah. But then enjoy the hunt of figuring out who it is. Because no one else can tell you exactly who that is. I don't have your blueprint. I can tell you the things I know about hell. She can tell you the things she knows about the Morrigan. But we can't tell you yes or no. That's you.
And we're about on time, and Cris has to go because she has other obligations.
Yes.
So thank you guys for... Oh, I'll just throw myself against the laptop, don't mind me. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will be on Chris's channel tomorrow.
Yes.
Possibly the same time, possibly later, I'm not sure yet. We'll figure it out. Is there anything you want to plug before you go, seeing as it's been a couple of weeks?
Oh, it's been a couple of weeks. Well, right now, if you guys didn't know, I do have 50% off all of my shadow work mentorship sessions. So that is the single 1 hour and the 4 1 hour sessions for the month. And let's see what else. I am currently waiting for the last bits to come in the mail to be able to restock the Hellcape Death Paint. So that'll be up soon. And that's it right now, right? And then we talked about the podcast. We should have that up by October. That's what we're aiming for. And that's going to be awesome. And you guys are going to love the ghosties. And that's what I got.
Oh, the ghosties.
Also, come check me out at the Random Witch, because I'm going to click off of this and then go click that and then appear there like, oh, hi, I wasn't just living.
No one else wants me on their lives, so I will be sitting in my room twiddling my thumbs. So right now, Starry Eyed Supplies is back up and running. I managed to figure out some coding stuff. Yes, I figured out coding. Yes, you heard that right. I was so proud of myself. So we are up and running, and we have a plethora of really awesome Halloween stuff going up right now. Heartkeeper is one of my personal favorites with a little rib cage painted on it. And we have some gorgeous scented Halloween goodies.
The anointing oils, you guys, get on that. Quit sleeping. Like, look. Otherworld, she created it for me, right? I use this thing. Like, she was like, we're going to use this for channeling. And I was like, that's great. But then I was also like, I want it all the time, though.
It's all right. I have all the recipes.
They smell so good. So, like, jump on that shit. Like, I can't wait to get the Deep Earth one. I'm pumped. And then there's a Halloween spice one. There's a pumpkin spice. You guys. Like,
there is.
Sorry,
there is a
I didn't
Halloween
interrupt your pitch, but that excites me a lot.
So yeah, there's a pumpkin spice All Hallows Halloween anointing oil, and there are 2 anointing oils for Morticia Adams and Wednesday Adams currently, because that's the fun thing we're doing this year for Halloween, because each year I do something fun and silly, and this year it's the Adams family. So there is currently a Wednesday and a Morticia anointing oil and spell votive currently. And we've got the realm candles, and the realm candles are something new to help you journey to realms of other realms, and we have Asgard, Helheim, and the Green Realm currently, and there will be. Oh no, Helheim is a fourth one, and the Underworld.
Asgard, Green Realm, Helheim's
Underworld.
the fourth, because, yeah.
Underworld. We did a Hades Underworld one, which also reminds me I have a book coming out November the 1st with Asbjorn, which is Echoes of Erebus, which is a necromantic look at Hades and Persephone, and will be by both of us.
Badass.
If you want to pre-order it now, you can come talk to me and be like, Joy, I need this shit. And I'll be like, okay, we can do that.
Maybe not in that voice.
Well, you know. Right, so that's it for this particular live chat. Thank you guys for joining us. I hope to see you tomorrow over on the other side. On the other side. Which is...
And I will see
Chris's
you
channel.
on the other side tomorrow. And hopefully I'll see some of you guys at the Random Witches chat, which I'm about to go start now. So I love your faces.
Bye!